Welcome back to Athlete Archives. There's a quote that gets thrown around in football all the time: the biggest waste of talent. People say it about a lot of players, but there's one man who said it about himself. Adriano Leite Ribeiro, the Emperor, a man with a left foot that could break the sound barrier, who grew up in one of the most dangerous favelas in Rio de Janeiro, became one of the most feared strikers on the planet, and then walked away from all of it. This isn't just a story about football. This is a story about a kid who played for his father. And when his father was gone, the game meant nothing. Adriano was born on February 17, 1982, in Villa Cruzeiro, a favela in the north zone of Rio de Janeiro. If you don't know what Villa Cruzeiro is like, picture narrow alleyways stacked on top of each other up a hillside, where poverty and violence were just part of daily life. But Adriano always saw it differently. He once said that when he thinks about growing up in the favela, he doesn't think about pain or misery. He thinks about flying kites, kicking a ball in the alley, having fun. Football wasn't a career plan for him, it was survival. And everyone around him knew this kid was different. His grandmother saw it before anyone else. She scraped together every coin she had, sacrificed everything to get him into the Flamengo Academy when he was just 7 years old. She'd make him popcorn before training because that was all they could afford to fill him up. His father, Almir, was the other driving force. He wasn't a coach, he wasn't tactical. He just loved the game. And Adriano absorbed that love through watching him, through the way his dad carried himself, through the respect people in the community had for him. Adriano later said all the lessons he learned from his father came through gestures, not words. They never had deep conversations, but the integrity his father showed every day, that was the education. By 2000, Adriano was 18 and already on the senior squad of Flamengo. He scored on debut week, and within a year, the biggest clubs in Europe came calling. In 2001, Inter Milan signed Adriano for around 13 million euros. He was 19 years old, leaving the favela for the San Siro. Think about that jump for a second. From alleyway football in Villa Cruzeiro to one of the biggest stadiums in the world. But Inter weren't ready to throw him straight in. He was loaned to Fiorentina for half a season, then sent to Parma on a co-ownership deal. And that's where things started to click. At Parma, he formed a devastating partnership with Adrian Mutu. 23 goals in 37 Serie A appearances across 2 seasons. He was powerful, technical, and had a left foot that genuinely terrified defenders. The way he struck the ball wasn't normal, it was violent. There's a reason he became a cheat code in the FIFA video games because in real life, his shot was just as absurd. Inter saw enough. They brought him back permanently in January 2004 for around 23 million euros and handed him the keys. And then came the summer that changed everything twice. Copa America 2004, Peru. Adriano walked into that tournament and absolutely owned it. 7 goals, golden boot, the best individual performance in the competition since Pelé scored 8 in 1959. And the moment that defined it all, the final against Argentina. Brazil were losing in the 93rd minute. Adriano equalized. The game went to penalties, Brazil won. He didn't just win the tournament, he rescued it in the most dramatic way possible. After that summer, he went back to Inter and hit another level. 2004-05 was his masterpiece season. 28 goals. He was instrumental in winning the Coppa Italia, Inter's first in 23 years. In the Champions League, he scored a hat-trick against the defending champions Porto. He finished in the top 10 of the Ballon d'Or in both 2004 and 2005. The following year, he helped Inter win the Scudetto with 19 goals. He also won the Confederations Cup with Brazil that summer, picking up another Golden Boot with 5 goals. Javier Zanetti, Inter's captain, once told a journalist that he pulled Adriano aside and told him he was a mix of Ronaldo and Zlatan Ibrahimovic, and that he could become the best player in the world. At 22 years old, Adriano had the world at his feet. He was the emperor. Nobody could stop him. And then, 9 days after winning the Copa America, his world collapsed. August 4th, 2004. Adriano was back in Milan, preparing for Inter's pre-season. He got a call from home. His father, Almir, had suffered a heart attack. He was dead. He was 44 years old. Adriano's teammate Ivan Cordoba was there when the call came. He later described the scream Adriano let out, said you couldn't imagine that kind of sound. From that moment, Cordoba said, nothing was the same. Adriano kept playing. He kept scoring. He'd point to the sky every time he found the net. But behind the scenes, he was falling apart. He later described it simply. In the span of 9 days, he went from the happiest day of his life to the worst. He was 22 years old, alone in Italy, thousands of miles from his family, and the one person who connected him to why he played football was gone. He tried to keep going. The goals kept coming on the pitch, but off it, he was drowning. He started drinking, not socially, not to take the edge off. He drank to survive. He later admitted he drank everything he could get his hands on: wine, whiskey, vodka, beer, every night. Inter knew. His teammates knew. The club would tell the press he was injured when, really, he just wasn't sober enough to play. Massimo Moratti, the Inter chairman, treated him like a little brother. He gave Adriano space, let him fly back to Brazil for treatment. But the depression had taken hold. He was sent on loan to Sao Paulo in 2008 to work with their medical team and see a psychologist. It helped for a while. He started to rebuild. But one day Moratti called him and asked how he was doing, and Adriano told him the truth. I just can't do it anymore. I have to stay in Brazil. And Moratti let him go. No drama, no public fallout. He respected the decision. Adriano has always spoken highly of him for that. Before he officially left Inter, there was one moment that shocked everyone. Adriano disappeared. He left Italy, flew to Brazil, and vanished into Villa Cruzeiro for 3 days. Nobody could find him. The Italian press lost their minds. The Rio police launched an operation to find him, convinced he'd been kidnapped. But Adriano wasn't kidnapped. He was home. He later said it himself. Rule number 1 of the favela is keep your mouth shut. Nobody was going to give him up. He went there because he needed freedom. He needed to breathe. He needed to feel human again, away from the cameras, the media, the pressure of being the emperor every single day. The world saw a superstar in crisis. Adriano just saw himself going home. In May 2009, Adriano signed with Flamengo, the club where it all started. He scored on his comeback. And then he did something nobody expected. He helped Flamengo win the Brasileirão, their first league title in 17 years. He later described that Flamengo squad with pure joy. He said sometimes they showed up to training not for the football, but for the drinks afterward. Someone would be suffering the next morning and a teammate would say, "Don't worry, brother, I'll run for you today." They did everything together, and they won. He wasn't the emperor anymore. He didn't want to be. He just wanted to be Adriano. There were more chapters after that. A brief stint at Roma that didn't work out, a spell at Corinthians where he won another league title, and eventually retirement in 2016 after a short time at Miami United. But none of it carried the weight of that Flamengo homecoming. In 2021, Adriano wrote a letter for the Players' Tribune. It was titled "A Letter to My Favela," and in it, he called himself football's biggest waste. But it wasn't self-pity, it was ownership. He said he likes the word waste. He said he's obsessed with wasting his life, that he enjoys the stigma. And then he wrote something that cuts deep. "I drink because it's not easy to be a promise that remains in debt." He explained why he went back to the favela. It wasn't about the drinking, or the women, or the drugs. He says he never touched drugs. It was about freedom, about peace. He said he sees his father in every alley of Villa Cruzeiro, that it may not be the best place in the world, but it's his place. And then he wrote the line that sums up his entire story. Adriano did not disappear into the favelas, he just went home. In December 2024, Adriano played a farewell match between Flamengo and Inter Milan. During the game, the stadium screen played a message created with artificial intelligence. His late father's voice recreated speaking to him. Adriano broke down in tears. He told reporters afterwards that his biggest regret is that his father couldn't be there. But he knows he's happy with everything Adriano learned from him. Adriano scored over 100 goals in Italy. He won 4 Serie A titles, 2 Coppa Italias, a Coppa America, a Confederations Cup. He finished in the top 10 of the Ballon d'Or twice. He's still Inter Milan's all-time top scorer in the Champions League. A wasted talent? Maybe, by football standards. But Adriano never measured his life by football standards. He measured it by the only thing that ever mattered to him: family. If you made it this far, drop a comment and let me know what you think of Adriano's story. And if you haven't already, subscribe to Athlete Archives. We've got a lot more stories like this coming. I'll see you in the next one.